Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone around the world. I am Paul Sisler, and this is In the Moment. Well. Warnock, yes, 51 seats. Yes, Georgia, way to go. Way to go. All right, my special guest today, she has a YouTube channel called Mixed Messages, and she talks about mixed races. And this is going to be part of the topic that we are going to discuss today with my special guest, Sarah Doneghy. Sarah, hello. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Paul? Thank you for
I,
having me.
I am awesome, and it is my pleasure, my honor. I am, oh, man. I'm excited. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
yeah, me too. Me too.
I'm excited. So,
I'm ready.
Raphael Warnock, he won.
I know. I know. Yeah. And to put a downside on it, look how many voted for Walker, though.
I know. Isn't that sad? Isn't that sad?
But not surprising. I mean, here we are like, yes. And I mean, when it should be like, duh. So
Yeah. See, I've talked about this before when we get into the political races and the candidates that we are presented with. This is why we have to eliminate, in my opinion, we have to eliminate the party system, because with the party system the way it's set up right now, the left and the right, they give us these candidates, and we have two people to choose from. Yeah. And it's sad that everybody, they go in, if they're a Democrat, they vote the D's. If they're a Republican, they vote the R's, and they don't care who the candidate is. So you could have put Bacon up against Raphael Warnock, and Bacon would have been that close against him, because it's we're so tribal now. We're so tribal. But anyways, let's get on to you and your show, Mixed Messages. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. But I do want to go back to something you said just now.
Okay, well, let's go back to that first then, and then we'll go to Mixed Messages.
All right, just because the Bacon Democrats and they don't care, they vote straight down. But I mean, in the 2016 election, so many people hated both candidates that so many people didn't vote. And I think they do care because people hated Hillary. And I just heard a lot of I'm not voting. Oh, I'm voting for whoever. I'm voting for my son. I'm voting for my neighbor, or I'm not going, or whatever. And I do think at least then it mattered. I think hopefully now a lot of people have learned, okay, I have to do this. But I do think it absolutely played a factor in 2016.
Oh, it's played a factor for a long time in relation to voting party lines. I did a segment a few years back on the whole voting, on how it all originated, and how originally when people would vote, you would have representatives go out to the bar, the town square. Who's voting for who? And they would raise their hands. Who's voting for who? And that's how it was tabulated.
Nice.
Okay. Then we went to paper, and then we went to the ballot system and the machines, and it's progressed along the way. And they would actually fly around in airplanes and drop Democrat and Republican tickets out of the sky, paper ballots, and people would vote on them.
Like confetti. Oh, man.
Okay. So, I mean, we've come a long way. So when you really think about who's been elected in the past and how it was done, it's like, how legit was that? It wasn't. These are the most legit elections we've ever had in our history. And now we've become tribal with it, to where it's strictly left and right politics and nothing in between. So that division, and where you're saying, well, I didn't want to misrepresent. It's not that people don't care. They want better people running for office. But because they're tied to a party, they're going to vote for their side no matter who it is. And what we've seen is that when Democrats get pissed because they don't like their candidate, they won't vote. Where Republicans have been going out to vote no matter what every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Democrats are starting to now finally do that.
Yeah, totally. And I think what happened in 2016 was a big motivator to be like, this can't happen again.
Yes.
But it could.
It can and it will.
Yeah. I know I was here to promote my show and you wanted to talk about that, but I'm very interested. Like, yeah, I have.
Well, we got a lot of topics that we're going to try to cover here in the hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it takes.
All right. I have the time. I don't pick my son up till 2:30, so let's go.
Oh, okay. All right, so let's talk about your show for a minute. Explain to everybody where they can find you and what your show is about.
Okay, well, my show is Mixed Messages with Sarah Doneghy, and it can be found on YouTube. There's a link posted and pinned to my Twitter, so that's Sarah D NY City, and it's on here. And my show, Mixed Messages, each episode, a guest discusses their personal mixed race experience with me. And that's what it's about. And yeah, we get into it.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Who's been some of your guests that you've had that have been have you had like any very interesting interviews where it's just like it blew you away, like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened? Or
always. I mean, if you watch me, I mean, I'm not I'm very animated, so woo! There's so much I have learned since doing this. And I am just, one of the things, and it's a commonality in guests, is that even though they're mixed race, half of their family members are racist against one of their races. And my very first interview with Marcus, he's black and white, his mom is white and is racist. And I wasn't aware how common that was. And at least 3 of my guests I have 7 shows, and at least 3 have gone into how their families are racist.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of the blown away things. Yeah. I mean, my last episode just, look, we get into racism. We're people of color. We get into it. Happens. There's no way to avoid it. Yeah. And just, I wish I weren't surprised, and I shouldn't be surprised at this point, but I am unfortunately always surprised at the racism people have faced and the blatant racism people face, and it doesn't matter where.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in answer to your question, everyone blows me away, and I learn something from each episode, and I love it.
Yes. I understand this, and again, I will never comprehend racism from the perspective of being a black man, because I'm not a black man. Now, let me clarify something here. My heritage, I am German, I am Sicilian, I am Nigerian, I am Irish, I am a few other things along the way, French. I have lots of heritage from all over. But when I walk through this world, I walk through with the visibility of being a white male. Okay? Doesn't matter what the rest of my heritage is. People presume you're white. Okay. I refer to myself as human. I belong to the human race. But with that said, I have been in places where people assume I'm like them, and they will let the N word fly. They will allow Asiatic slurs. They will allow Hispanic slurs. They will allow these slurs because they assume, because of this, that I'm in line with them.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised at that either. And I have written about this, and I talk about it on my show. Look, you see I'm white. A lot of people assume I'm white, and they say these things around me. And when most, if not all of the time, when I break it to them that I'm mixed, that I'm black, oh, I didn't mean it, blah, blah, blah. But also what you're saying is, why do people think a white person wouldn't be offended by racism? Like, everyone. So it's just like everyone should be offended by racism. Why do they think they're safe? And that, I can't understand that. I cannot.
Because they assume that the line of thinking is the same because we look alike.
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a group of people, white people, and people say this, are you the only one that speaks up?
Yes and no. Sometimes, depending upon where I'm at and when it happens, and I have to look at my surroundings, I have to judge whether or not it's safe for me to say something.
What does that mean?
Okay. If I am in a room where the mentality appears to be the same throughout, okay, and if I speak up against it, what will they do to me?
Can I have it? Where is this? Like in at a party?
I was at a town hall meeting, and the area that I was in was very, very Trumponian. And the mentality of most of the people there was in a line, and with the people that were there, some of them elected officials, and that vocabulary was used.
The N-word.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, I quietly gave a look and said something. And things started to get quiet, and I had to make my way out. I became scared. Now, I wrote this book, and those people, I have been spit on. I have had people come to my home with baseball bats. I've had people sit out in front of my home. It's part of the reason why I had to move from Northern California. Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes I might be in an area or a position where if I think that mentality is like that, they might be willing to hurt me because of my views. Okay. Because it doesn't align with their views. And I want you to really look at how this country's division has gone. I mean, look at the insurrection. Hang Mike Pence.
Were you surprised?
Yes and no. First of all, I couldn't believe it was happening, and yet it didn't surprise me that it was happening.
You followed the tweets, though, of Donald Trump. Like, this was January 6th, it's going down, blah, blah, blah. But also, from your experience with Town Hall and these people and the people who spit on you and went after you with baseball bats, and for me, I grew up in West Virginia. They were, yes, Trumpers, and also I grew up around racism. They didn't, and grew up around a lot of racism. I wasn't surprised when he won, and I was angry at people who were and just laughed him all the way there, including my partner. When he won, my partner was like, and I remember being like, I told you, I told you. And the same with January 6th. It's just like, yeah, this is, there are a lot of people like this. It's like,
Yes.
this is not new.
No.
But I do think so many people didn't know this and weren't exposed to this. And sorry.
I agree with that. I think there's a lot of people that thought that this was something of the past that didn't exist today.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, I was one of those people in my youth.
Okay. Well.
And when I moved down to, I was in the casino industry for 20 plus years. And when the casinos opened up in the Midwest, I was one of the first people to start on the riverboat gaming. And I transferred from the President Casino in Davenport, Iowa, down to the new President Casino in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Okay.
And my dad was telling me that you need to be careful down there. It's very racist. And I'm like, Dad, this is the 90s. That shit don't exist anymore. And I got down to Mississippi, and oh, yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I went through a sundown town. I got educated as to what a sundown town was. I had no idea what it was, but when you see a big billboard with the silhouette of a black man hanging, and it says the N-word, "Don't let the sun set on your ass," you're like, what the hell? That's got to be an old billboard from like the 20s or something. It's got to be from the 1800s. It cannot be here in this day and age. And oh yeah, it is. It is.
It is.
And I think that's when I started to wake up to things, became more observant to things, looked for these types of things more in society. And well, yeah, I see it all around. I see it all the time.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is important, because you didn't have to see it, and you were able to think it didn't exist because you didn't experience it. And I think if you're talking about the 90s, I don't know if this was before or after Rodney King happened, or the Central Park Five, because I know that I feel that when people saw these things, it was just like, how? But I also think, especially with Twitter, one of the things I love about Twitter is their boots on the ground news. And unfortunately, or for better or for worse, no one would know about these shootings unless people were filming them and putting them out there. And I'll say that so many people, Caucasian white people, been like, I can't believe this. But it's just like, yeah, and because you don't have to know to not trust police. You don't have to know to not go to a certain area. And I mean, it's horrible, but it's also so eye-opening. And I do see people wanting to know and wanting to learn how to be just not racist, but anti-racist. So I do think that's a good thing that's happened.
I tell you, social media has brought the light to a lot of things. And I think the one thing that probably pisses me off the most is that when you talk to somebody about these things and they bring up the one white situation where it happened the other way. Well, what about that white guy that was shot by the police?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need to go into the whole per capita thing on how this is going? Do I need to go into all the statistics? Do I need to find you the information to show you otherwise? Well, I did. I wrote a book. It's now in the book. So there you go.
Yeah, you should have it there. Boom. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, honestly, Paul, once they're going there, it's like, I'm not going to change your mind. If this is your example and you're like, what about, and we can, honestly, it's exhausting. I'm sure you understand. It's just like, you are not going to break this. They don't want to believe in racism, so it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've ran spaces and talked about systemic discrimination on a multitude of levels. And obviously, when I say systemic discrimination, most people automatically think racism. Why is that? But I also talk about misogyny. I talk about discrimination against the homeless, people that are impoverished, children, the elderly. I cover all aspects of discrimination throughout the book. But the majority of the things that I talk about is systemic racism, because it is the most predominant, especially against people of color. And I was blown away at how much information I found when I was writing this, and how much information, even reading through case law, okay, Supreme Court decisions, and how many times I had read opinions and dissents that use the word, either the N-word or Negro, and not in a kind way. And it's just like, these are Supreme Court justices, and this is what's ruling the land based on this decision. And it's like, oh my, and the 60s, the Supreme Court decisions in the 60s and this early 70s are just mind-blowing. I mean, obviously I can go way back further than that. But I learned a lot writing my book, and there's a lot of belief systems that I had that I changed because I educated myself in writing the book. You know? And now I'm trying to spread that. I want other people to be educated in what's really going on. And it sometimes it gets difficult, because sometimes some men just can't be reached.
People, I would say. But I think your book is fantastic. There, like I was saying before, there are people who are are recognizing the racism in themselves and are saying, all right, I need to learn how to be an anti-racist. And these are the people who are grabbing the book and are saying, let me learn this, let me put this into practice.
Yes.
And that's a fantastic thing. And it's a fantastic thing that they have access to your book and to knowledge.
Yes.
And they're looking for it. And there are people out there, including yourself, when you wrote this, that want this.
And there's a lot of things that I've learned along the way that, there's things that I used to say that were racist that I didn't know were racist.
Right there.
Of course. I mean, a spade is a spade. Okay. I did not know. A black friend told me, Paul, when you say that, everybody here is looking at you, because we all know that you don't mean that. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
We know you are not like that. You know what you say is racist, right?
Yeah.
Please explain. Educate.
That's the response that is necessary to change. You said, please explain. Okay, got it. Not going to do it again. Yes. And that's the thing with, you can't know until you know.
Yeah.
And growing up, being raised in this country, there is this all around, and there's a lot of things that were said to me and done to me as a kid. And it didn't take until I was years older to be like, well, damn, that was racist. That was so racist. That was horrible. Yeah, to go to my show, another thing I've discovered, speaking of racism, is that which I never tire of, mixed race people have stories of racism that are not often told or known. And one of the things, I was asked, growing up in West Virginia, I was asked to pretend I was something else, or to pretend that I wasn't Black. And that's not just my story at all. And I think that's something, I don't want to say it's exclusive to mixed race people, but that's a story that so many of us have, and it sucks. And it's just like, I mean, I'm 11, 12, and I'm like, okay, I don't understand why this, okay, I guess I want to play with you. And then I'm like, well, damn, what? Yeah. It's just, you don't know until you know.
Yes, I know. And as a kid, I'd heard the word, and as a kid, used it, told jokes with it, without comprehending it, not knowing. And when I got to junior high school, and we had a Black student, and people were using that word towards that Black student, that was like my first time being educated as to the meaning behind the word.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my God. And I quit using it then, because I didn't know what I was saying and what the connotation. Again, I was a child. And again, these kind of things, and this is where I talk about ignorance, okay? There's a lot of people that they're raised into this situation that they may not be racist, but they're taught racist things, and they say racist things, and they do racist things, not knowing that they're racist.
Yeah.
It's a different type of racism, okay? It's unintentional. And then where the decision comes in is that when they find out and figure out what it is, the choices they make from there is whether or not they're an intentional racist or an unintentional racist.
Yeah. And then to go further, are they willing to be an anti-racist?
Exactly.
And I mean, see, when I was in middle school, and get this, I went to Stonewall Jackson Middle School, and I was that kid that was called that. Is that your clock?
Yeah, that's my clock.
Okay, I was just like, oh God. Okay, I was like, I turned off my phone, and what is that anyway? Okay, no, I was that kid, and also like my friends, like I didn't have many friends, mostly because of that, and I remember the kids that were my friends would tell those jokes, and 13, 14, it's hard to speak out, and it's about you, and it's just really hard and sad. And I remember them saying things that they insisted weren't racist. They would call people wiggers, wannabe, and I was like, and I do remember saying that's racist, and they were like, no, it's not, I'm talking about white people. And I'm like, it's still racist. And I remember it's the no, it's not. And that still happens to this day.
Yes.
As you know. So like you're saying, you can tell someone it's racist, and it's up to them to be like, what do I do with this information?
Right.
Also, though, let's say, I mean, more than likely these kids learned it from their families, right?
Right.
So what happens when they accept they themselves are racist? They are determined not to be, but they don't speak up against their family members that are. Like, and I know so many people whose parents wouldn't let me play with them, whose
Mhm.
parents wouldn't let me in the house, who, when I found out when we first started dating, I'm not allowed to date black guys. I'm not, and I have asked them since then, are your parents still like that? Oh yeah, but they're set in their ways. Oh yeah, but they're old school. No. The ways they're set in and the old school is racist.
Correct.
And I don't know. I have not been in that situation, but they do still make exceptions and excuses, and I'm not going to talk to them about that. I can't be like that at the family dinner table, blah blah blah. But you know what, can you not, I mean, and do you see how that hurt me? Do you see what I'm saying? And they're still like that anyway.
I know, and here's where the tough aspect comes in, because my dad, he went to Korea, and when he would see an Asian person, he would call them a GOOK.
Okay. Yeah.
And it wasn't until my late teens that I confronted him on that. And he told me that I didn't understand. I wasn't there. I didn't walk in his shoes. I can't understand his hatred, his fears, his blah, blah, blah. So he justified his racism because he went to war. And I didn't go to war. So I can't understand where he's coming from. And yet he's unwilling to listen. And for the most part, my dad wasn't a racist person because of the ignorant stereotypes that go along with why people are to be hated for this reason or that reason, laziness, they're thieves, they're blah, 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 the ignorant rhetoric that goes with it. Okay.
Yeah.
My dad had a hatred because he had to go kill them and they were the enemy. And it took me a while throughout my years to wrap my head around that, because in my mind, it's like, how do I get through to someone that has this hatred because of a life experience that they went through? I mean, when you have an entire nation of people that are there to kill you and you're sent there to kill them, how do you fix that in somebody's head? How do you get them to comprehend? So when we talk about like people that are set in their ways, that's the way they were brought up. Even then, they are taught that we're just not supposed to mix. We're not supposed to talk to them. They're lesser, okay? They're all these different things that they've been brought up, that's how they've lived their life. How do you break through to that solidity of known experience that they believe they have versus someone who actually sees the hows and whys, it's all wrong? How do we break through to that? Because I mean, I haven't figured out how to get through to someone that just because of their own lived experiences have this perception of a people.
That's tough stuff. And as a teenager, and it's your dad, and he's telling you you weren't there, this is what I had to do, I think it's a very hard and complicated battle to take on.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone would fault you for I mean, that would mess with me. It's just like, and your dad is a parent. And when parents tell you this is how it is, as a teenager, it's usually like, are they right? And
Because he's the
that's
one that taught me to not be racist. Don't judge
yeah.
people based on their actions, not the color of their skin. Okay. And yet he had this innate hatred to a people
Yeah.
because he went to war.
Good God.
I mean, again, in your youth, how do you comprehend that? Now, as I got older, it's just like I kind of had an understanding of where he was coming from and why he had this hatred, but I never could break him to get over it.
Yeah. And I mean, did you ever say, Dad, that's hypocritical? Like,
Yes. Yes.
Uh-huh.
And it was always, you just don't understand. You weren't there. You didn't go to war. You don't know.
And then I'm guessing it went, but Dad, you're not there now. And these people weren't the ones. That's hard. And
well, and one of the things he always used to tell me is, we all bleed red. And I'm like, Dad, they all bleed red.
And you weren't there. You weren't there. Yeah, I mean, and this goes back to what you were saying. Some people you're just not going to get through to.
Some people you just can't reach.
But it is hard when it's, especially, this is your dad. And you're knowing that he believes this. And I mean, these are I guess my friends, and I don't know. I can't know. I'm not in their shoes to tell their parents you're racist and this is how it hurts people and this is what you've done. I will tell you a story of someone that changed, which I dated this guy 15 and white, and his dad, and this happened a lot, like to the point of where I was like, oh, okay. And he said, I heard you talking about this. And I was thinking, well, that wasn't you, but I'm not. His dad saw me in his house, said he wanted me to leave, called me the N-word, and you're not to see her and all this. And this guy, I mean, I was like 15. So he was like 18, 19 years later, he contacts me. I don't really remember this at all. And he contacts me and he said, I remember when that happened. And shortly after that, I stopped talking to my dad. And it wasn't until like over a decade later that we talked about this. And he said he understood why he had done that and that it wasn't going to happen and that he had changed. I'm like, well, damn. Okay. All right. So that was kind of surprising. And the fact that this guy felt the need to reach out to me when I hadn't heard from him so much longer and let me know that, I was just like, okay. And he's just like, I'm now married to a Black woman. He accepts her and all this and that. And so I do think it is possible for these people to recognize it. These people set in their ways, and yeah.
Well, again, it takes the right amount of time, and it takes, there's always going to be a certain thing that will reach somebody. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be an emotion or a situation or something that when it's said, it'll connect.
I don't know.
And when it connects, that change will take place. But until that imprint is there and they're willing to admit, maybe I've been wrong about this.
Yeah. And that often never happens.
Oh, I don't know. There's this I always forget his name. He was a singer and a preacher, and he goes around and he would live with Klan members. He was a black guy that would live with Klan members and change their perspectives. And he would end up keeping their robes as a token of change.
Mm.
And I can't remember his name. I know if Carl was on here, he would know. But some people, again, it's interaction. There's people that are racist that have never interacted with a black person or a Hispanic person or an indigenous person. They have no idea who these people are because they've never interacted with them. They've always been in their little white groups and have talked, but have never actually interacted. And then when they have to finally interact, they now are predispositioned to this hatred, this discrimination. And sometimes they might have a conversation and start to question themselves. Other times they're going to avoid that conversation, maybe because they believe what they were taught or the fear that they could be wrong. Because one thing you got to remember, especially with men hate to admit that they're wrong. They don't want to be shamed. They have to stand their ground. That testosterone kicks in, and I am right no matter what.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just, I don't know. I don't know if it's exclusive to men.
It's not exclusive to men. It's not.
You bring up an interesting point that I've been really thinking about a lot lately and have written about, but and pitched, but it hasn't gotten accepted yet. So come on, because this is good. There are so many people that believe they cannot be racist if they are nice to a certain race. I have black friends. I have a black daughter-in-law. I have a black son. They believe, and and this is how I grew up. These neighbors being nice to me. Oh, my kids, I allow my kids to play with her. So no way can I be racist. And that's just not how it works.
Correct.
And that is a big thing that people don't want to explore and truly believe that they cannot be racist if they are nice to people of color.
Yeah.
You can be nice and still think these people are inferior and still hold your beliefs. It's not exclusive. And this is something I want to explore, and I just have, I get it all the time, and it's like, oh, I compliment you. It was a compliment saying whatever. You look exotic. Mixed people, mixed babies are the cute, whatever. You have a good speaking voice. I mean, people do not believe that it is racist if it is nice.
Yes, you are absolutely 100% correct on that analogy. Absolutely. I know a lot of people. Well, I'm nice to them.
Yeah.
Them. Please define them for me.
Yeah.
Well, them.
Yeah.
Them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that justifies your racism? Well, I'm not racist. I'm nice to them. No. Oh, yes, you are absolutely correct. There are, I would say, the majority of racists are like that.
It sucks. And it sucks when it's a surprise, because I have had friends and my partner's family be nice to me, accept me until and then hold beliefs that they were okay with me being black until they had to face that I was black. And it was heartbreaking still to this day. And they stopped talking to us. My partner's family stopped talking to us. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard when it's a surprise.
Yes, definitely. Now, before the show, we talked about reparations.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
thoughts?
Yes, I think, yes. Come on.
Okay.
Bring them
All
on.
right. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about reparations, and when you get down to what's actually owed, it can never be paid because there's just not enough money in the world to make up for what's been done.
Thank you. Exactly.
All right. So I have an idea, and I'm going to kind of present it. I'm going to go a long route with it here.
Bring it.
All right. We've had a discussion slightly about UBI, Universal Basic Income.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, in Stockton, California, they did a UBI.
Ooh.
Okay. And they found that guaranteed income reduced income volatility or the month-to-month income fluctuations that households face. Recipients of guaranteed income were healthier, showing less depression, anxiety, and enhanced well-being. Unconditional cash enabled recipients to find full-time employment. The guaranteed income alleviated financial scarcity, creating new opportunities for self-determination, choice, goal setting, and risk-taking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are a lot of statistics to this, and a lot of people believe that if we had a UBI, that people would spend it on drugs and stuff like that. Okay.
I know.
All right. This test showed differently. And let me put this back up for a second because there is the name of the organization, SEED, and the website
nice
is StocktonDemonstration.org. Okay. And I want people to go to this and learn more about universal basic income because universal basic income is my premise. Now, granted, there are a lot of other things that need to be done to get to this point. Okay. Like a cost of living wage, a universal basic income being established to begin with. We have to criminalize discrimination. Okay. It's got to be criminalized. And in my book, I've written amendments for both of these things, criminalization of discrimination with a True Equal Rights Amendment. And I've written a cost of living amendment where we actually have a cost of living wage and a firewall to prevent corporations from raising their prices, inflation, to make that wage nothing, to where if cost of living goes up, the wage goes up with it. If it goes down, it goes down with it. Okay. Now, with that said, I had proposed in my book a universal basic income that would be a quarter of what the cost of living wage is. So at the time I did it, the cost of living wage would have been just a little over $16 an hour. So then the universal basic income would have been $4 an hour equivalency, which would have been about $8,000 a year. Okay. So here's my idea for reparations.
Okay.
After we do all of this stuff, people that are direct descendants to slavery, they would get a 1.5 times the cost of living every month. So instead of $16 an hour, they're going to get $24 an hour, which would be $48,000 a year. Every year, a check. There you go. People of color, whether they are black, brown, indigenous, they all get the cost of living, period, because of all the crimes that we've done against them. Women would get half of the cost of living. Okay. Now, if you are a descendant from slavery, you get the full 1.5 times. And if you're a woman, you also get the 50%. You get both. You get both checks. Okay. Because you were double discriminated against, you see what I'm saying? Okay.
I see what you're saying.
All right. And this goes on forever and ever. Now, people are like, well, how do you pay for that? We have to change our taxation system because our current taxation system only brings in $3 to $4 trillion a year. The taxation system that I talk about in my book would bring in $20 to $30 trillion a year. This form of reparations would cost about $7 trillion a year. With my new taxation system, this reparations format could be implemented. Now, of course, you're going to have a lot of white people going, but they're getting more money than me. I'm poor. Well, guess what? You're not being discriminated against, nor was your predecessors discriminated against. And this is called reparations. So there you go.
Do you include the LGBTQIA plus community?
Yes.
That's what I was wondering, because I was thinking about trans women and non-binary people and everyone in that community.
Pansexual. Yes.
Regardless. Hey, me too.
Yes. So, yeah, definitely. And I think this is the way. And again, it's not a big payout, but it's something that's going to be paid generational upon generational upon generational, to come. And this is something that we could do for like 200 years.
Yeah.
And because this is the amount of time that it would take to basically abolish all systemic discrimination. Granted, we can put the amendment out there and have the law and have it done, but actually getting it out of our books and making sure that businesses and corporations and stuff like that still aren't doing it, that's going to take some time. And then, of course, people are going to have to go to prison for what they've done. And then a whole redoing of the prison system, because again,
oh God,
that is a whole nother systemic discriminatory thing that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Along with law enforcement, the whole reformation of law enforcement. And again, I talk about that in my book. I cover a lot of shit in my book.
Yeah. and homelessness. I mean, you brought that up as well.
That can be abolished.
I mean, and also what I have thought for a long time and what should be is that Black people, brown people, people of color should have access to therapy. And yes. I mean, because you are walking around like, I mean, stop and frisk, like just, I mean, you are walking around with this weight on your shoulder that you wake up in a country that you know hates you. Like it's and to be, I mean, and I to be followed by police, to be assumed guilty rather than innocent, to be imprisoned for years and years and years for a petty crime or no crime at all. I mean, these things get to you. I mean, and people need access to therapy, to free therapy.
Yes. We need a universal healthcare system that covers mental and physical health. We need a universal educational system to where everybody has access to education. Again, if you have an educated people, then what the government's doing right now can't be done because people are educated. But if you deny people that education, then obviously they're easily manipulated and brainwashed and, so on and so forth. My friend Carl that I mentioned earlier and all that, prison is modern slavery. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
When I went through the United States Sentencing Commission, and when you go through and you look at the tiers for crimes and the point systems that are done, you can see when you start looking at who's in prison for what, and how the Sentencing Commission is discriminatory against minorities, on how there are white man crimes and there are black man crimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And when you start looking at things like marijuana being a Schedule I narcotic, Harry Anslinger, who was at the tail end of Prohibition, okay, the 18th Amendment, which made alcohol illegal for distribution, sale, manufacturing, consumption, blah, blah, blah. And then the 21st Amendment, which repealed the 18th Amendment. That was Harry Anslinger. And Harry Anslinger lost the war against alcohol. So he took up the war against marijuana. And he said that any drug that will allow a black man to stand up to a white man has got to be evil. Any drug that will allow a white woman to sleep with a black man must be evil. This is Harry Anslinger, okay? So he got it to where marijuana became a Schedule I narcotic. It was made illegal based upon racism, discrimination, all of these fine things, to imprison minorities.
Yeah.
And when you look at this system and the setup, almost, I think it's like in the federal system, 41% of the people that are in there are drug-related crimes, and in the other county, state, blah, 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 it's like 26% of the people that are in there are drug-related crimes. And a majority of them are related to weed. Okay. Yeah. So our prison system, not only does it need to be completely reformed, the United States Sentencing Commission needs to be completely reformed. The Controlled Substances Act needs to be reformed. Okay. All of these systems are broken, and they're aimed at minorities, people of color. They're aimed at women. They're aimed at, I mean, do you know who gets, when you look at the sentencing, because there's brackets of minimum and maximum on what, you know, they can sentence in relation to the crime based upon recidivism and stuff like that. You know who gets hit with the max sentences the most often?
Black people? Who?
They're second. Women.
That's women. Interesting.
Yes.
Black women?
Especially black women. Women are hit the hardest. Yeah, that woke me up to something. There's not as many women in prison because women aren't as violent as men. Okay, most crimes are crimes of violence, and obviously the most people that are in prison are men because of violence. But that in itself should say something. Why are there way more men in prison than women? Because men are aggressive and violent. Okay. Then when you start breaking down the men and why they're in prison, and you start looking at it, most white men are in prison because of violence. Most black men are in prison because of drugs. Okay. Resisting arrest. Well, why are they resisting arrest? Because they're being taken to the ground and half beaten to death. Okay. All these additional charges that are thrown on. The discriminatory aspects of it is just astounding. And when people try to tell me, well, Paul, that's just not the way it is. Oh, no, because you see, the United States Sentencing Commission, the Bureau of Prisons, NIBRS, which is all the reports from all the crimes and stuff like that. When you start looking at that, all these reports from these government agencies and the information that's there, yes, I'm absolutely correct on this.
Yeah.
And guess what? They all publish papers and send it to Congress. So Congress knows this too. And why do we still have all of these issues? If Congress knows this, why aren't they trying to change it?
And let's talk about police lie. Like, I have seen my friends have had these reports, and it's like, no, that didn't happen. That absolutely just didn't happen. Yeah, I wasn't intoxicated. I wasn't here. I wasn't doing this, that, and the other. Like, this is a lie. And I mean, police are the law. So who are people going to believe? But they get a rap sheet, and it can just be completely false. Or
yes.
John. And Yeah.
Well, again, it's a system. I coined it criminal deadlock. Um, Poverty, homelessness, recidivism. When you go to jail and you get out, now you have a record that makes it harder for you to get gainful employment.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you don't have family or a friend or someone that you can rely on to live with, to get back on your feet, maybe get re-educated or whatever the case is, to allow you to get back out into the workforce, you're going to end up without a home. You're going to end up without income. Eventually, you're going to be homeless, jobless, and now have to resort to survival tactics. What do you do to survive? You're going to have to steal. You're going to have to commit crimes. You're going to have to do things that violate the law, which is going to throw you right back into jail. Criminal deadlock.
Exactly.
You can't get out of it. The system is designed to keep people that have been criminalized in the criminal system.
Absolutely. Have you heard about recently? I'm in New York, and Mayor Adams has passed a law that that people who are mentally ill are going to be institutionalized. The people who are mentally ill on the subways and the streets, and I mean, come on, homeless, and it's sick. It's
against their will.
Yes, against their will.
Yes.
And I mean, what are these people laying in the, living in the street? And why? Why are they? Because
Sarah, this goes deeper. This goes deeper. Now I come up on somebody. They get loud. They get obnoxious. I think they're mentally ill.
Yeah. And I mean, look, Paul, I have depression. I'm on medication. I'm not going to be snatched off of the train. I mean, and it's just like they are using these words. Just say homeless. You were locking up homeless people for being homeless.
Yeah. Now imagine if you see a crime being committed against somebody, or something is done to you to where you speak up and you go, no, blah, blah, blah. Oh, she's mentally ill.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because a normal person wouldn't yell at the cops like that. You see where this is headed. And again, this is going to be directed at people of color. I'm telling you, it's going to be directed at people of color.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Gonna be, is. Totally.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes. I know. Carl says, police need education from Jane Elliott. Absolutely. Part of my goal is I'm hopefully, if everything goes right, I'm going to be running for political office here in California.
I knew it, or at least I was going to be like, are you? Excellent.
Well,
good.
Depending upon how things go, I've got books that I have to finish writing. I have to get the income coming in that I need to come in. In 2024, there's a chance I might run for legislation. Nancy Pelosi, my goal is to get to San Francisco because Nancy Pelosi is not going to run in 2024. So maybe I could make a go for that seat. Otherwise, my previous goal was to run for governor in 2026 of California. All right. And if I were to actually become governor, one of the things that I would do, I'm going to implement a new state policing training program, and it will be mandated for the state.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone that applies to be in law enforcement, they must first take a polygraph test, first and foremost. And they need to be interrogated. Are you a racist? Are you a bigot? Are you a misogynist? And they need to be asked in every form possible. And if they can't pass the polygraph, they can't be a cop.
Mm-hmm.
Then they need to take the psychological exam. Now, after they take both of those, now we'll take a look at your resume. Now we'll decide if we're going to put you into the post training, because with the post training, it's going to be less about escalating things. It's going to be more about de-escalating, and there's going to be an education process that goes with it. Psychology, philosophy, sociology, cultural anthropology, all of these things are going to be mandated as part of the curriculum.
That's great.
And I want psychologist police officers. I want sociologists as police officers. I want people that know a psychological problem and are also a police officer, and they're not there to escalate it. They're there to understand it and get the right help for people that need help. And then if somebody is, doing something wrong, it's de-escalated instead of escalated. No more of this guns, and they have to have a degree. Okay, for a cop to go on to be able to go out on patrol, they must have the associate's degree. Okay, if they want to be a sergeant, they must have a bachelor's degree. They want to be a lieutenant, they must have a master's degree. In other words, I am going to construct a curriculum for law enforcement. And if you want to be a cop, you have to have a degree. Just like if you want to be an engineer or a scientist or a doctor, you have to have a degree. If you want to be a teacher, you have to have a degree. Okay? If you're going to be a cop, you're out there interacting with people on a daily basis. You must have a degree, and you must have knowledge of the law and the Constitution. And trust me, you're going to know that Constitution inside and out, forwards and backwards. And if you don't know it, you can't be a cop.
Yeah. And you'd have to dismantle everything. Who's in there now? Wipe it clean and start over.
Yeah. That is my objective. I become governor of this state. This state is going to have a complete redoing of, yes, Carl, drug therapists also on the force. Yes, there will be people with the education to know how to handle situations. And if they don't know how to handle the situation, plus the other thing I want to get rid of is plea bargaining.
So, yes.
Yes.
I wanted, before we jump to that, I was just now thinking all of the people who they would need to refer to or turn to need to be vetted as well.
Yes, absolutely. We need to get rid of the slave patrols. That's what we have right now. Our police departments are slave patrols that have existed since the police first began. And they haven't changed. Their teachings haven't changed. Their mentalities haven't changed. Their behaviors haven't changed. It's the same. They've just been given a go by a former president to become more brutal than what they were, to allow themselves to show their hatred and their racism and their bigotry and their misogyny. It's got to come to an end. It's got to come to an end. We need a new way of thinking, a new way of policing. Again, somebody's speeding on the highway, somebody's jaywalking, these things that are just, oh my goodness, the violence, the theft, all the different things that they need to be addressed in different ways. Okay. Speeding on the interstate. I mean, if you make a car that can't go above the speed limit, this is where when people are like, they don't like Elon Musk. It's like, well, if you can make the electric cars to where the speed limit is the speed limit and people can't go over it, guess what? Nobody's ever going to speed again. Okay. So there's benefits to certain things. There have to be things that the police are actually addressing versus harassing.
Yeah. And I mean, how many Black people have been stopped at a traffic stop?
Yeah.
So they say, and shot, period. In the head, period, done. I mean, and it's just, I, I, I think it all has to be torn down before it's built. Uh, I mean, but like you were talking about the impulse to go to a gun first is just
Take away the gun.
Yeah.
Cops without guns.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Now that's what I think people will very much have a problem. You talk guns. Don't take our guns. Don't take it. I mean, America,
Oh, I know. I'm a gun owner. I am pro Second Amendment.
I know.
Okay. But I've also been trained to use my guns. I would never use a gun without training on that gun. And I think everybody needs to be trained. And again, I've got a whole system set up where, just like the DMV for a driver's license, you're taught in high school about guns. You're educated on them. You don't get to shoot them, but you do get to take them apart and learn about them and what they are and learn the history of them. And then when you graduate and you have your certificate, just like you do with a driver's license, you go to the training facility at age 18 if you want a gun, and you go get your gun license. You test with a revolver, you test with a semi-automatic, with a rifle, with a shotgun, whatever it is that in my system of how Congress allows certain weapons, you test with them. And then if you pass the test, then that's what you can buy. And if you don't pass the test, that's a restriction on your license. You have to know how to use the weapon. If you don't know how to use it, you can't own it. And this is going to bring gun crimes down tremendously because it would be an automatic registration. Okay. All serial numbers are listed. 90+% of all gun crimes, not counting those perpetrated by the police, okay, 90% of all gun crimes are done with illegal weapons. Okay? So once you can get the illegal weapons off the street and you make everybody register their guns, you're going to have less crime there. Now, you take guns away from police officers until they reach a certain limit in qualification and education, all right, to where regular cops out on the street, they don't have a gun on their side, okay? They got their shotgun in the car in case they absolutely have to defend themselves. And they also, if they can make it to the car and they can drive away, they need to drive away. But if they can't, then that's a whole nother situation, okay? Then you have to level up, basically, to be a police officer and have a firearm. And then when firearms are involved, you're called out to that situation because firearms are involved, not because you're there with the firearm to begin with. So this is going to eliminate a lot of the crimes that police commit in murdering people, especially people of color.
What do you do about, though, like we have a mass shooting every day in America? My friend did buy her 11-year-old a bulletproof backpack. A lot of these people do have their guns legally, or have taken their mom's gun or grandma's gun, like, or whatever. I mean, what do you have? What about that?
This is where the psychological aspects come into play, where you have to have a psychological exam before you can purchase the gun. And if you have psychological issues, if you've already got a gun license, your gun can be taken away and held until you either recoup from your psychological issue or your license gets revoked. Okay. A lot of these crimes, I know the right likes to say mental illness. There is a mental illness aspect to it, but it's not because they were born mentally ill. It's because they were made mentally ill by the system. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When you have people that are in poverty, when you have people that are being discriminated against, that's going to cause depression. That's going to cause a lot of anxiety. It's going to cause issues psychologically. Okay. If you eliminate poverty, you take away 70% of the problems right there. Okay. Most gun violence occurs because of poverty. All right. So eliminate poverty, you eliminate gun violence right there. Eliminate discrimination.
Right.
Okay. You're going to eliminate a lot of issues there. Bullying. Okay. I was bullied when I went to school. All right. I know where my mind went a few times. I know some thoughts that I had. Okay.
Yeah.
I was this close to being a Columbine type person. All right. Because I was bullied. Eliminate bullying. Now, how do we do this? Okay. First of all, we need complete police reform before any of this can be implemented. Okay. Now, I worked in the casino industry for 20 plus years. I had video and audio on me all the time. Okay. And if I didn't have audio, I always had video on me. You go into a grocery store, there's video cameras.
Yeah.
Okay. Every school, every classroom needs video surveillance. I know a lot of people are like, but I don't want my kids to be on video. The video is there to protect your children, just like the video is in the store to protect the merchandise. You have no problems with people protecting their merchandise, but you have a problem with people protecting their children. All right. Now, then we need police on every school ground. Now, hear me out on this. I went to the College of Southern Nevada. It had its own police force. Okay. They weren't security guards. They were cops.
I got you.
All right. And they patrolled the campus. They drove through the parking lot. They didn't harass people or bother people. They made sure everybody was safe. They protected the grounds. They were there. Okay. When I asked students about the campus cops versus Metro, Metro was racist pigs. Campus cops are cool. Okay. Because Henderson, Nevada, their post-training actually taught a lot of things that I was talking about: psychology, sociology, anthropology, communications. They have this in their curriculum for their post. Okay. They produced better cops. Okay. So now, if you have cops that are actually there in the essence to truly serve and protect, and you have them on your campus, and whether it's a high school, a junior high, an elementary school, and they have audio and video, at least video, and they have cameras on the grounds, and you got somebody coming up, the doors can be locked and the police can be there because, oh, they're already there. You're going to eliminate almost 100% of the school shootings. Okay. But again, we have to have the police reform. And and then the other thing that it's going to do is, if you got the audio and the video in the schooling, it's also going to help prevent bullying. Okay. Not only between students and students, but teachers bullying students, students bullying teachers. Okay. If the classroom is being surveilled and you got a teacher that's picking on somebody, and that student goes home and says, the teacher's picking on me, now you can go back and review the film and see if the teacher's picking on them.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know a lot of people are going to be upset with me on this. Like, I don't want my child surveilled 24/7. I was surveilled 24/7 in a casino, and guess what? You don't even know you're being surveilled. You don't even think about that. You know
Right.
who thinks about that? The people that want to do something wrong.
Yeah, totally. There are a couple of things I'm thinking about, because there are mass shootings now everywhere, and I forget where my friend was traveling from, but there were all of these warnings. Don't go to a mall in America. Don't be in an open parking lot. School. There were all of these where you can't be, and I mean, it's nowhere safe. Like,
Right.
grocery stores, what? I mean, churches, funerals, parking lots. There's that I'm thinking of, and the reformed cops being there. But I'm also thinking of what you said about having a psychological evaluation in order, as one of the things to get a gun.
Correct.
There are mental illnesses that often don't show themselves until people are in their 30s or 40s.
Correct.
Or they don't bubble to the surface. And then what happens when people go off their medication and don't go? I mean, and also, look, this fluctuates, it gets developed, and if people go through a situation such as, grief or harassment or bullying or what, I mean, it can get there.
Right.
And what do you say about that?
There's a fine line. One of the things that I point out in my book, I have a chapter titled "Guns and One Not Guns." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone doesn't have access for guns, if they want to do something, they're going to do it. It's not having guns isn't going to deter violence. Okay. I can tell you a story about a guy that went back into a place with a machete and chopped up like 7 people. A guy that drove his truck into a building and ran people over. And I mean, other things can be used as weapons. Okay. And this stuff gets talked about less in the media than guns do. Okay. There's people that have put different bacterias in a salad bar and killed people and made people sick. There's, again, biological weapons. There are so many different ways of doing things. It's not just guns. All right. And this is why I go back to poverty. All right. If you eliminate poverty, which a UBI is the first step of eliminating poverty, allowing people to, basically get a hand up instead of a knee on the neck. All right. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is help people up out of situations. If we can help people up out of bad situations, less bad things are going to happen. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of these mental illnesses that develop because of situational things. All right. Quite frankly, anybody that kills another person is not mentally right. Okay. For whatever reason. Okay.
Right.
All right. Even in self-defense. Okay. If I have to take somebody's life in self-defense, I am not in a right frame of mind because I'm fearing for my life. I'm scared. My mind frame isn't normal.
But at that moment, correct? I mean, let's go back to your dad. I mean, he was in war. He was there to do that. So what do you think about that? Like, before the pandemic, I worked with veterans. I did an open art studio, Vietnam veterans, and I think for anyone, killing someone isn't a natural thing. And I think after that happens, so often the psychological PTSD, depression, anxiety, happens. So what do you say about people who are in the Marines, Army, Navy, don't have that, then do after?
And again, that's a tough line, because when you look at the crimes committed by vets with any kind of weapons or whatever, per capita, it's very low. It's very low. All right. Now, granted, there are people that can snap. All right. Whether they've been in the military or not. Okay. And there's always going to be people that are going to go to violence. All right. No matter what you do, take away all the weapons there are, they're going to find a blade of grass to use to slice somebody's throat. And trust me, it can be done. Okay. So there's always going to be a form of violence.
I agree. I understand.
So where we draw the lines on how and what we want to reduce and how far we want to go, we're going to have to weigh that once we can get things started. Because right now, with the system that we have, anything that I have suggested is an improvement.
100%.
Okay. So we have to go in that direction first.
Yeah.
Before we can start breaking down and analyzing how far we want to go.
Yeah. But we're here now, so I want to.
I know.
Yeah, no.
We're never going to stop mass killings, whether it's via a gun, a grenade, a truck, a whatever, a bomb, whatever the case may be. We're never going to stop that. There's always going to be the cases. The objective is to reduce it as low as we can.
Yeah.
So you have to look at what causes these things. And again, the majority of it is poverty. Poverty is the stem of the majority of it. You look at somebody that's gone to prison, they can't get a job. There's how do you get back into a right frame of mind if you can't even get a job and want to be a part of society again?
Or vote, or travel. I mean, or be human.
Right.
Or be human. And let's talk about what happens when people are in prison and what happens to their mind. Look, you've got to survive. And it's not normal. It's not normal to be thrown sandwiches. It's not normal to have to eat this rotted meat. It's not normal to have to live in this cell. It's just, you've got to protect yourself. And I do believe a lot of prisoners, you've kind of, it's the PTSD that happens after that is not addressed enough.
Prison right now isn't about rehabilitating people.
No.
Okay. We need to boot camp it. And I know a lot of people are just like, what? We need to militarize it? Yes and no. I want you to think about this, okay?
Okay.
Because a lot of people go, cruel and unusual punishment. The 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment.
Jesus.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Hear me out.
Oh, yeah. No, I am.
The military, how they're trained. We don't call that cruel and unusual punishment. You're being trained to defend our country. You're being disciplined. You are being taught how to make your bed, put this crease in. You get up at this time. You do this, you do this, you do this. And you go through a routine every day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that people that go to prison and are going to be rehabilitated, they need to wake up. They need to go out and have their calisthenics, their push-ups, their whatever. They go eat. They go back out. They run. They do this. They do this. They do this. They go have their lunch. And then they go sit in the classroom for the next 3 to 5 hours, and they're being educated. Okay. And you can open that education up to, I never really did good in math. I want to start over with math. I want to do this. I want to do that. Education. Okay. Remember, I want free education as it is. So this is going to be, if you already have an education, you get to increase your education. If you don't have an education, you now get to start an education.
Yes, but can I just interject?
Yep. Yep.
I have a friend, a good friend who's in prison now. He does all of that. It's a routine. He wakes up, he works out, he eats, he goes to class, he learns these, but it's the treatment. It's the treatment, being treated like less than by the security guards, being thrown in the hole because he tried to dim his light bulb, being thrown in the hole for a week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is what, and this is the reason he's in there is ridiculous anyway, but this is what he does. Like, this is his routine. He is learning a lot. Like,
he's doing this though on his own accord to keep his mental sanity. He's doing this by choice. It's not part of the curriculum. You see what I'm saying?
Some of it is. Some of it is. Like, they do make, well, he does have to get up at a certain time and he goes to work, and what he does is he
right
consolidates the recycling in the prison, and then he
right.
I mean,
but he's still behind bars.
Yeah.
He goes to a cell and he's behind bars.
Yeah, and he's treated
needs to be set up like a barracks.
Yeah.
Okay. And they all need to work together. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
It needs to be a different mentality and a different mindset. They need to be as if they're all family while they're in there working together. Okay.
Don't you think the security guards need the same training as you're requesting from police?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. And they have to be like a drill sergeant. They have to be like it is in the military. Okay. With this, now hear me out though.
Okay.
When you have your sentence, let's say it's 2 years, you go through your 2 years. Okay. The last 6 months isn't in this prison camp any longer. You're now put out into society in an apartment that you now have to maintain. All right. It's part of your sentence. This is the last 6 months of it. And you are given a job, okay, so that you can reallocate with society. You go to work, you're monitored, make sure that you're in by this time at night. You're allowed the weekends to do this or this time to do this. You're allowed to go see family. It's all monitored. And you make sure that you can readapt to becoming a part of society, a productive member of society.
But that is what happens now with halfway houses. They're sentenced.
Oh, no.
No. Yeah, I mean, they, or at least that's the attempt, because yes,
it's the attempt, but we have to clean out all the people that are in there running the majority of them now because of the corruption and things that are going on. Trust me when I tell you, there are some good ones. There are good ones, okay? But there is a lot of corruption involved with that. And the halfway houses, again, some are good, some are not. It depends upon who's managing it, who's watching over the people, and what's being done. But when they go to the halfway house, do they already have the job when they get there, or do they have to go out and find it?
They absolutely have to go out and find it.
Exactly.
And what I mean, look, I understand you. What I'm saying is they do have that in place, and I also agree with you that all of that needs to be reformed too.
Yes.
But they do have to, like my friend's in a halfway house for a year. And he's allowed to see certain people, sign in, sign out. He has jobs in the halfway house to do. He does have to find a job on his own, but being in at a certain time, the curfew you're talking about. But I understand what you're saying. That has to be reformed too. And
right. But now imagine if he had a job on his first day.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then 6 months of showing that he has a good job, blah, blah, blah. All right. And he can do the job. And during that process, he can go out and decide if he wants to find a better job, if he, and maybe move on to somewhere else or back to where he wants to be or whatever. And then he gets that job. And then once he moves out of this halfway position, this halfway house, whatever we want to call it, he now gets his UBI.
Right.
Okay. So now he's got that extra income coming in.
Yeah.
He can continue doing education. He can continue working his job. The options are there. He's now being treated like a human being again.
Yes. And this goes back to wiping the felony clean. Like felons are able to obtain or to get back all of the rights that people who weren't in prison do, as far as travel, as far as voting.
Yes.
Getting a job, owning a house. Yeah.
Exactly. They have to be able to become a productive member of society without any form of discrimination against them.
Yes.
And they have to feel like they've become a member of society.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if they don't get to feel like that, if they feel like all eyes are on them all the time, they can't function normally. There's part of the mental illness that comes in.
Right.
Right. So that's, again, these are the things that we have to fix. It's a complete remake of the systems that we have in play. We have to abolish systemic discrimination holistically.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we went there. We went there. Let's talk about mixed messages. Now we're into this. I love it, Paul. I love it. Great.
I love it too. And like I said, I can sit here and talk all day on this. The things that I want to implement, the Second Amendment. I wrote an amendment to amend the Second Amendment because it's so vague, and the right, they're going to come and take my guns, and the left is, we just want you to register them. The far left is, no, we want to take them, So you have the extremes on the left and right, and then you got everybody coming up here where people on the left and right up at the top are like, yes, let's register them,
Yeah.
And my system is not only registering them, but training people. If you're going to own a gun, you have to be trained. Cops, they have to be trained. They're just not given a gun and there you go. Here's your gun and badge and go out there and patrol. No, they are trained. I was a bounty hunter. I had to take the same psychological exam that police do. The only difference is that I had to take mine at the beginning and wasn't prepped for it, where cops, they take it after they go through post and are prepped for it during post. Okay. So I had to take the same psychological exam. And then the majority of the training that I received in firearms was the same training that the police receive in firearms. And it's all about aggression. It's all about aggression.
6 weeks.
What's that?
Was it 6 weeks?
My bounty hunting training was 80 hours. Okay. The post training for Henderson, Nevada is 26 weeks.
Okay.
Okay. A lot of your post training will vary between 18 to 22 weeks. There are some places, especially with like county sheriffs, a lot of your county sheriff department, they only have anywhere from 6 to I think it's like 14 weeks for a standard post training. Some of them do the full 18 to 22. Other ones, it's like, yeah, here's your 3 weeks of training, and we're going to put you out there with a gun and a badge.
Yeah, I heard 6 weeks. That's
yeah, it varies. And again, the post training curriculum is written by cops.
Yeah. Just like when the cops investigate the cops for the unlawful shootings.
Yeah. It's got to be done from an outside source. It's got to be again, cops, they're just not held accountable. They need to be held accountable. I don't think that cops should be civilly sued. There's a reason for this. If a cop does something that's wrong, they should be criminally prosecuted. Okay. If they're criminally prosecuted and they had malicious intent, then they can be civilly sued. All right. If what they did was truly an accident or a mistake or a misjudgment, all right, and even though they might be able to be held criminally accountable, I don't think they should be civilly sued. I noticed that there's a lot of people that were going to school to be a cop chose not to be a cop because they could be civilly sued for a mistake. All right. Everybody makes mistakes. Now, granted, let's say I take somebody's life and it is accidental because I thought they had a gun and it wasn't. All right. Now, I know this because I was almost in a situation. There was a woman that I had to take in for domestic violence against her father. Okay. Yeah. And when I tracked her down and I went into the home to take her in, she was hiding behind a huge entertainment center. And when I moved the entertainment center out, she brought a cell phone up. Okay. Not as big as this, but she brought it up like that. Okay. I almost pulled the trigger. I thought it was a gun. I thought she was going to shoot me. She was holding her child against her chest. Okay. And her other child was standing right next to her. I could have shot and killed not only her, but her children.
Yeah.
Okay. That would have been a mistake, not an intent. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, because so many of the police shootings, murders they have said has been mistaken identity. Now, let's say it was. Why are you still shooting these people?
That's malicious intent.
Thank you. Yeah. And
I hate black people and I want to shoot one.
Okay, good. Because it's like, we thought this was someone else or whatever. And sometimes, I mean,
like the kid eating his burger in his car.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. The cops murdered him.
I know.
That's not a mistake.
It's not a mistake. And I mean, look, I'm sure you know this. People, the Second Amendment, everyone has a right to own a gun unless they're black, because Philando Castile said, I have a gun, I'm registered, I do have a gun in the car, here's my registration, all of this is legal.
Yep.
Doesn't matter.
No, I know. And that's not a mistake. Like I said, there's a difference between a mistake and malicious intent. That's why I threw malicious intent in there. When you're shooting somebody that has nothing to do with fearing for your life versus, I thought this woman pulled a gun up, and I was lucky that I didn't pull the trigger. Not because, first of all, I would never ever want to kill anybody. Okay. Yeah. I would have to live with that.
Yeah.
All right. And that's not something I want to live with.
Right.
There's the difference in the mentality right there between me and a lot of those cops that are out there. They're itching to kill somebody.
Exactly.
Okay.
And a lot of people in the military. But a lot of people in the military aren't. And I mean, I know people who went into the military because it was a guaranteed income.
Yep.
They didn't want to kill people, and they're messed up after they killed people. They killed someone.
Yes.
Let me ask you this though. Even if she had a gun, why would your aim be at a place that could kill her? Could you not aim somewhere else?
You have to aim center mass.
Oh, I don't know this at all.
The reason why you have to aim center mass, nobody is perfect in their aim.
Okay.
If I try to aim for an arm,
right,
I can miss. And if I miss, I can harm somebody else. If I aim for a leg, I can miss. And my bullet can harm somebody else. All right.
I've always wondered that.
You aim for center mass. And unfortunately, center mass is the heart. It's the lungs. That's where you aim. And again, I wish it were different.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's where you're aiming. You're not aiming for the head, the arm, the leg, the hand, the foot. You're aiming for center mass. Because if they are a threat to you or somebody else, you have to protect others. And again, I know it's I can have a philosophical discussion on this, and I can argue both sides of it. Okay. Because the idea of taking another life just it nauseates me. It makes me sick.
Yeah.
All right. And in that situation where I thought it was a gun, it would have been her life or my life.
Right. I hear you.
And thankfully, I registered that it was a phone and didn't pull the trigger. And Jesus Christ, did I yell and scream at her afterwards. I was so pissed that I almost killed her.
Yeah.
You know? And in that aspect, I'm like, do you care that little for your children that you would put them in that situation? I mean, one of the things I had law enforcement do was contact CPS. I had her kids taken away from her right then and there because she put her children in that position to be shot.
Did she know that though?
She intentionally brought the phone up to be shot.
Oh.
Yeah.
What? Wait, what? So she was suicidal? I don't understand.
Suicide by
no. That's
bounty hunter.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
Yeah. And I'm pissed that I went off on her. I had regrets for doing that, but I was so angry that I almost killed her and potentially her children that I mean, I was, oh my God, I was angry. I yelled and screamed at her.
Yeah.
And, you know, and every cop there is, again, something that pissed me off. I would have shot her. What the fuck?
But
you would have been well within your rights. That doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. And it doesn't mean that you wouldn't have carried that for the rest of your life, regardless if you thought it was self-defense or not. Who was the guy? This is a long 20 years ago, a long time ago, who was reaching for his wallet because he wanted to get to show them who he was. He was murdered on his doorstep by police. What was his name? Do you remember?
I remember actually quite a few of these situations where people have reached for their wallet and have been killed.
This was it. And I mean, just so many bullets, but Amadou Diallo. Because I remember as a kid, yes, Amadou Diallo. And he was, this is what this reminds me of, except that she knew exactly what she was doing. That's, whew.
I know. Like I said, it's frustrating. The system that we have right now is so frustrating. We need better ways to treat people. Again, if poverty and the system wouldn't have treated this woman that way, maybe that situation never would have happened to begin with.
Yeah.
Maybe she never would have been violent against her father. Okay. She may not have been, prone to such violence in her life if there wasn't poverty. Okay. Poverty plays a huge role. We have the ability, especially in this country, to eliminate poverty. There doesn't need to be poverty. There doesn't need to be homelessness. If we eliminate poverty and homelessness, we eliminate like 70 to 80% of all crimes that are committed. Because that's where most of them stem from. Poverty. Homelessness stems from poverty. Of
course.
So let's eliminate poverty. We can eliminate the majority of the problems in this country just by doing that.
Yeah. And make having mental health a normality.
Yeah. Yeah. Get rid of all the racist cops and the bigot cops and the misogynistic cops. Get rid of
and the racist system. I mean,
yeah. I was just going to go right there. The system itself, just eliminate the discrimination systemically, make it a crime. If we had a prison full of racists and bigots and misogynists, I would be very, very happy if that's where they all ended up going.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would make the world a better place. Somebody hitting a joint is in prison for 20 years. How ridiculous.
Yeah.
How ridiculous.
I know.
Somebody stole some copper or some wiring and all that to try to cash it in so they can get some food for their family. I'm sorry, that's not a crime. The crime is that the person was impoverished to begin with when there's no need for it. That's what the crime is.
Yeah. And one of the things that has broken my heart, just out of control and angered me as well, is the how the baby formula has been locked up because there's a shortage and people can't afford it, and whatever the baby formula, the diapers, they have been behind glass cases. And it's like, sometimes for me, if I see someone stealing that, I don't see it.
Yeah.
Same with food.
Yeah. When Andrew Yang first talked about the UBI, I was like, oh God, no, we can't do that. People are going to take advantage of it. They're going to live off of it. It's the wrong way to go. And I did some research into it because I didn't understand enough about it. Right. And in my research, I found out that no, it's actually not a bad idea at all. I went back to Moore and Vives back into the 15th century, where, as far as I know, that was like the first time that it was actually proposed to do it, because people were stealing bread and the sentence for stealing was death. So they were being killed for stealing bread, and yet they continued to steal bread because they're fucking hungry.
Exactly. They need it.
Okay?
It's needed. Yeah.
And I need to feed my family, so I'm going to risk being murdered to feed my family. When you look at it from that perspective of, wow, if we gave everybody an income, maybe they wouldn't be stealing. They would get up, and, be more inclined to better themselves. They're not going to live off that because they want more. I mean, my God, they're willing to steal bread to feed their family. What else would they be willing to do if they had a hand up?
Totally.
And that changed my perspective on it. And now I'm pro UBI. It's like, and the Stockton trial proves exactly what Andrew Yang was talking about. So it's like, there we go. And there's others, Huey Long, Martin Luther King, I think Kennedy, FDR. There's so many people that have talked about a UBI for so long. And it's just like, well, why haven't we done it? Why haven't we done it? Well, because the corporations the corporations, the governmental money, the blah, blah, blah. How are we going to pay for it? Well, if we get rid of our poverty tax that we have and go to the taxation system I've developed, guess what? Instead of $3 to $4 trillion a year, we'd bring in 20 to 30 trillion, and we can afford $7 to $10 trillion a year in universal basic income to eliminate poverty.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so ridiculous how these basic kind of needs are considered so radical and so far thinking and so out there when it should be just, I mean, the basis of living.
Oh, these ideas are nothing new, Sarah. They really aren't. These ideas that we've talked about on this show, none of it's new.
Yeah.
None of it's new. All these things that we talk about reforming the police, that's nothing new. Okay. Doing things differently. None of this is new. They've all been proposed hundreds of times. But the system that we have right now works for the elite few that are making the money, that are in control. It's working for them. It doesn't work for everyone. They don't want a system that works for everyone, because if it worked for everyone, they're not special anymore.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. And it's not like,
Yep.
Totally.
They're not special anymore. And right now they think they're special. Some of them more than others.
Oh, yeah. And it's them who want the least for the least number of people.
Exactly. I mean, all these problems could have been solved, 1840 something, 1850. There's a book that I have, The Law by Frederick Bastiat. Okay. And they liked the way that the United States was going. The downfall of the United States was going to be on tariffs and slavery. That was the issues that they saw that we had back in the 1800s. And we've now built a system on tariffs and taxes and slavery, just in a different way. It's not called slavery, it's called incarceration, but it's still slavery. And then, of course, minimum wage in a time and era where we don't have a cost of living wage. We have a minimum wage, which is way below the cost of living. Minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. When I figured it back out in February of this last year, cost of living was $36 an hour. So, so now we're looking at corporate slavery. You're a slave to the job that you got to work 2 or 3 to survive, and it's just it's an impossibility. It's an impossibility for some to be able to make it. I am fortunate that I have been able to survive this long with what I've had, and that's running low, and that's why I'm doing this. I'm either gonna do or die with getting my message out there. I mean, right now I'm making nothing doing this, and eventually I hope to monetize it, because this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Same with me.
I am going to get the word out there, and I am going to try to educate people. I am going to try to make change. I'm going to try to get laws made, abolish systemic discrimination. And if I die doing it, I die doing it. That's just the way it is. This is what I'm going to do. If nobody else buys my book, I don't give a shit. At least I tried.
Yeah. You have to. And that's what you have to do. And what I have to do. And I hear you.
Yes. It's the goal.
You're doing it, though. I mean, Yeah.
I'm working it. I'm trying.
Same.
And I'm trying to bring some other avenues too, like I have a spirituality channel. I got some writing channels. I'm just now getting into getting some other channels that are going to go more political, because I didn't want to, when I rebranded, I didn't want to start it out as being all political again. I wanted to bring some other avenues into it, because people need variety. People need, some joy in their lives. So I want to talk about happy things also,
I hear you, but I feel like you and I have had a lot of joy between us talking about this. And with my show, yeah, race and racism come up, but so many of me and my all of us, there's so many times we're laughing and it's fun, and it's just like, it's not ever one thing. And I know it's possible to talk about things and talk about race and racism and politics and guns and and still have a good time doing it, and find a common ground, and talk to the person and enjoy the person's company. And I think that's what it comes down to. And
most definitely.
yeah,
Most
so
definitely.
it can be any topic. I think you do bring joy into it, especially when you're so passionate about these things.
Yes. And I try. That's all we can do. What's that?
I said, you're doing it, Paul. Yeah, you're trying,
Yes.
you're succeeding.
Yes. And you are too. And everyone needs to check out your show, because
Thank you.
The guests that you've had, and again, I haven't gotten through all of your videos. I've gotten through quite a few of them though, and it is there's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of things, even when you're getting into the serious aspects of things, there's still humor. And
yeah. Well, and sometimes
really
it's so ridiculous. Thank you. And sometimes it's so ridiculous that you have to laugh. But yeah, it's just connecting with people as people, and having a conversation. And
yes.
And I will say to your viewers, I'm always looking for guests. So let me know. Yeah.
Anytime. Carl would make a great guest. He's a little camera shy, but I think because
Bring it
Carl.
out.
Well, I'm not going to mention anything, because that's Carl's story to tell. But Carl's got a great story. I think he would be a perfect fit for your show if he's willing to do it.
Nice. And that's another thing. Everyone has a story to tell.
Yes.
Everyone has it, and everyone's story deserves to be heard.
Yes, definitely. And let's see, this Saturday, I don't know if it's going to be this Saturday or next, but I got to get in touch with Sergeant Nobody, Jeremy Walker. He just recently wrote a book. I just did a special interview with him. We're starting a show on, I think, Saturday. It's going to be called Comedy. And we're going to have specific comedians here and there that we're going to talk about. And our first one is going to be Ode to Carlin. And we are going to bring up some things that George Carlin has talked about over the years. I mean, he was so ahead of his time.
Yeah.
We're going to bring up some things and discuss them in relation to current events today.
Oh, I'm interested. And you know what I was thinking about for whatever reason today? All in the Family and the Jeffersons in Sanford, and how, I mean, you watch these things and it's just like they were doing it and saying these things and attacking these things that people often shy away from today.
Yes.
And I mean, let's talk Richard Pryor. I mean, come on.
Yes. Oh, I grew up with Richard Pryor. Oh my God.
But I mean, it's amazing to watch and see, and just they were doing it, and a lot of it would be censored today, but it's pretty groundbreaking.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, All in the Family, Archie Bunker. Yeah, I grew up with that. I grew up with that.
But George Jefferson too. I mean, come on. Like it's great.
The Jeffersons was like a breakthrough in television. You know, I mean, that just that hit like a whole new aspect of a multitude of things that just, you know, it just, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, it was groundbreaking at the time. And here I was being a kid watching it, just thinking it was the funniest show ever, not knowing how groundbreaking it was, because that aspect had never entered into my life of knowing, you know. And it's just like, now when you go back and it's just like, ooh, ooh,
yeah,
you
it's
know?
like you just said that, you just did that. Yeah.
And then who was the neighbor that
I know the interracial couple?
Yeah, the interracial couple, and it's just like, ooh.
Yeah.
Where again, as a kid, I didn't think about it, and it's like now when I look back, and it's just like, ooh, they went there. Yes.
I know. And also I remember, because like we started watching it in a house, and it was my sister's favorite show, who's younger than me. And as kids, we all watched it. But we always, do you remember the mixed race family? They had a daughter who was, I mean, they were both saying they were mixed race, but we were always like, he's white and she's black. And it was just, I don't know. I think today, if they rebooted it, then maybe they would have
Good Times.
Different kids. Good Times was great too. Not as good as the Jeffersons. Sanford and Son.
Yes. Loved Sanford and Son.
I love all of that. I love all of that. I had to introduce my partner to it, because I was like, he's like, I'm like, no, bear with me. This is really good.
Red Fox. There's another comedian to address. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I'm excited for this show. I'm also going to have a show on Stoicism, which is basically a separation of your emotions from your logic thinking, instead of letting emotions control your life.
That's good.
Yeah. The writings of Marcus Aurelius is what my friend Bryce does on Twitter Spaces. So for me, I'm going to go back to Rene Descartes, a philosopher. Even though I disagreed with a lot of his philosophies, there were things that he brought to light. I think, therefore I am. Okay, the mind-body problem, different aspects that I like to address, especially with his usage of argument, you know, premise one, premise two, conclusion, whether it's a valid argument or a sound argument. Excuse me. So I'm going to educate people on critical thinking skills, basically. And you bring in critical thinking skills, and hopefully I can draw on that, and then I can attack other issues like what we're talking about and get people to start critically thinking more.
Yeah, and you have to at least try to separate the two, because once emotion takes its toll, it's hard to think critically, or not think with your mind, but separate the two is what I'm saying, and not let your emotions take over.
Right. You have to learn how to know when to keep your emotions in check, you know, and that's what it comes down to. It's like, if somebody's doing something that frustrates you and angers you, you got to be able to take that step back, take a breath, and come back and think in with a logical manner, like they don't know better, or they're doing this to, you know, get me riled up, blah, blah, blah. You have to look at it from a different perspective, and then come into it with reason and logic. And if you can come into it with reason and logic, you're going to make more sense. And more than likely, hopefully, you can get this person to open up a little bit. And otherwise, I mean, God, if I let my emotion do all the talking, my God, I would never be able to make sense of anything. I'd be a bumbling fool.
Well, yeah, and it's not healthy. You wear yourself out. You wear yourself thin. It's not good. It's not good for you. You gotta protect yourself at some point. But it is very hard when you're so passionate about things, which is why it's important, I would love to take that kind of class.
Well,
Rough
when I get
stuff.
it started up, I'll send you the link to it, and definitely have you come on and watch it, and then somewhere down the road and all that, just have you as a guest on there again.
Okay,
I would
cool.
love to have you again. My God, I would love to do a weekly show with you. I mean,
It's
my
really
God.
fun. I remember an interview just talking and talking, and I think it was your stepson saying, or your son-in-law saying, "Do you want this chicken now, or should
Yeah.
we?" And then I was like, and my son was getting ready for bed, and I was like, "Oh, it's way past his bedtime." So yeah, I get into it. It's great.
Yes.
It's great. Thank you.
Well, if you decide that you'd like to do a show together on any topic, let me know. And if you want, we could set up a show that we would do once a week together.
That would be cool. That would be very cool. Yes.
All right. All right.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes, we will definitely do it. We'll help promote each of our shows, and there we go. There we go.
Thank you.
Yes. I love it. I love it.
Me too. Me too. Clearly. Just like, let's go.
Yes.
Thank
yes.
you.
I want to bring definitely a lot more people into the mix. I want to bring Lana Quest back. I had a great conversation with her. I want to bring Alice Little back. Have another conversation with her. She's a sex worker out in Nevada. And during the COVID, the governor shut down all the businesses, and then that was like the last business that was brought back up, and a lot of those women and all that suffered tremendously because the inability to make money. They weren't receiving any unemployment or anything like that, no benefits, no health care, no nothing. So it's like these are the issues that, again, that need to be addressed. And
we didn't even get into that. And I'm thinking of how OnlyFans helped a lot of people during that time. But have you ever thought of doing a panel for this show?
I am working up to that. Yes, I would definitely love to do a panel sometime. I want to maybe like set that up to where like once a month I do a panel and just bring in like about a dozen people and just open up the floor and discuss things. Hopefully I can bring in enough people that would be respectful enough to not over talk on other people. Which again, I've run. Have you ever been on Twitter Spaces?
No, I have not.
Okay. Next time I do a Twitter Space or I'm in one, I'll send you a link to it. You'll have to come and do a Twitter Space. It's audio only, and we have conversations. You have a host, sometimes a co-host or two co-hosts, and then you can bring up like 10 people to speak, and then everybody else is a listener, and it's quite involving.
Like Clubhouse. Did you ever go on Clubhouse? Yeah.
It's like Clubhouse. Okay, cool. Yeah, cool. So it's great. I mean, Bryce and I have had quite a few shows here over the last few weeks talking about Elon Musk, because there's a lot of people that hate Elon Musk. There's a lot of people that love Elon Musk, and we're trying to bring two sides of the equation into play and get people to look at it in a more realistic way. Instead of hating on the man because he's a billionaire, let's look at some of the innovative things that he's doing and hope that he can make things a little bit better along the way. And yet look at the asinine aspect of him also, and
the Trumpian aspects.
I don't believe he's Trumpian. I believe he's making like that to get people riled up because he's a troll.
He encouraged people to vote Republican. He did do that.
Yeah, he did. He's a troll.
And he brought Trump back. I mean, okay, Paul, I might have to stop myself because we're going to be here for another hour. But I mean, and I'm just like, I have to pick up my kid now. But because, okay, we could get into that too.
I think he does these things to get people riled up.
Okay, absolutely. But it does, and with good cause. I mean,
yes, because I don't like Trump either. Let me put it out there. I don't like Trump either. But has Trump been convicted of these crimes yet?
No one's saying that. Or
I know.
But I mean, look, has he been convicted of crimes? No. Is he a racist? Yes.
Yep.
Is he? I mean, look. Is he a xenophobe? Is he home? I mean, come on.
Yep.
Come on. He spews hate.
Yep.
Convicted of crimes, not convicted of crimes. He committed all of these crimes that aren't even on the table.
Yep.
I mean, we could.
So let him back on. Let him open his mouth and get rid of him again.
I'm not. It's not just here. I've got to stop myself because I'm going to get into it. You're going to get into it. But I want to hear, I do want to hear this. Send me the link to the Elon Musk. I'm interested. Very interested.
Yes. Because like I said, I like to keep my mind open on things, and I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, no matter how much I dislike them, like Trump. I really do not like Trump. But I'm not giving Trump the benefit of the doubt. I'm giving Elon the benefit of the doubt that he's going to make the right decision down the road. And I want him to implement that. Like, I'm going to give Trump his voice back. But now when Trump does something that's xenophobic, misogynist, or whatever, you best be getting him back off there. Because if you don't, then you're lying.
But he's already, I mean, once he let so many people, like, the N-word flew off the handle. The slurs flew everywhere. And I also, but let me say this, because you are mentioning the electronic cards, and you are like, I think you're able to appreciate contributions he's made and not like him as a person, and not appreciate a lot of other of the contributions he's made. It's not this or that. So
exactly. And for me, it's like, I want Elon to be the good person that Elon could be. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I want. And I want him to demonstrate that. And I want him to prove that he can be that. And if he doesn't, then again, just another fucking asshole with money. I don't want him to be that. I want him to be the one that steps out from that fold, you know? So
I know. I appreciate your hope. Yeah,
exactly. And that's what it is. I want to see the goodness prevail. And I'm hoping that, you know, I mean, I don't think there's any hope for Trump. I really don't. I would like to see the good aspects of Trump come to light, which I don't think there are any.
Yeah.
I just don't think there are any. I think he's just so far freaking gone that there isn't any redemption for the man. But I always want, no matter how bad a person is, I want to give them an opportunity to find that redemption. I want them to be that better person.
Yeah. And I think it's great. You see the good in people, and you expect the good in people first. And
I want the good in people.
I do too. And which is why it's just like so confusing and disheartening when I don't get it. But I do go in with that perspective that people are fundamentally good. I hope. I think.
I do. Now I know you got to go get your child, so
I do. But this was. Thank you so much.
I could talk for hours with you. I love you. You're great. You know.
I do, and we did. We did.
We did almost 2.5 hours.
I know, but and it felt like nothing. I was like, "Let's go!" Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
All right. So I will contact you on my email. My phone number is on there. If you get a chance, DM me your phone number. We'll call and talk to each other. Try to get things set up. Until then, everybody remember, be kind, be happy, and may good things come your way. Thank you.
Thank you.